Another NBA team has taken a huge blow from injury. This time it's the Sacramento Kings, and guard De'Aaron Fox suffering an ankle sprain during practice that's going to keep him out for at least the next 3 to 4 weeks. The fact that it's a grade 3 injury implies there's actually been complete tearing of the ligament, and so this is certainly a much more serious injury than just your typical ankle sprain. Welcome back everyone to your #1 source for everything related to sports injuries and sports medicine news. In this video, we're going to talk about De'Aaron Fox's ankle sprain. We'll focus mainly on the difference between a grade 1, a grade 2, and a grade 3 injury, and then also talk about actually what's going on within the ligament whenever it's healing after this type of injury and why you might be out for a longer period of time. Make sure and go subscribe if you'd like this type of content and want to stay up to date with my future videos, and let's get started. Now, unfortunately, there's no footage at the time of recording this video to where we can look and try to identify better which specific ankle ligament might have been injured. The report is this happened at the end of practice, and so if we get any video in the coming days, I'll try to comment on that to talk about which ligament might have been involved. I will say though, the fact that they're going to reevaluate him in 3 to 4 weeks and it's a grade 3 injury makes me think that this probably isn't a high ankle sprain, because those typically are a much longer recovery, even when it's just an incomplete tear. And then of course, lateral ankle sprains are more common than medial, so I would suspect it's a grade 3 lateral ankle sprain, but we can't exactly say for certain without getting official word or seeing the video. Let's talk in general though about how we classify these ligament injuries, and I'm going to use this tissue to represent the ligament. A grade 1 injury implies that there's been some stretching of the ligament and some little tiny microscopic tears throughout the ligament, kind of within those individual collagen fibers. So if you just look at it, you probably can't really tell that there's any sort of little small tears in there. You might see some of the stretching, you might see some inflammation around it, but there's not really been any full real tear, so to speak of, in just a grade 1. Moving on then to a grade 2. A grade 2 is now where there is in fact a partial tear. So more stress applied through the ligament equals more tearing, and now we can see a visible tear partially through the ligament. With grade 2, of course, we're now going to have more swelling, we're going to have more pain, and ultimately this can of course progress to a grade 3, which is complete tearing of that ligament. Your next thought here might be, well, if we've got complete tearing of the ligament, how in the world is this going to heal without having surgery if these two ends are completely far apart from one another? So let's touch next on how these ligaments heal and some of the things to think about for his early management. Initially, Fox is going to have a period of immobilization with his ankle and ligaments protected within some sort of a boot, potentially on crutches as well. The goal in this early phase is to minimize the swelling, minimize the pain, protect the ligaments from further injury, and try to somewhat immobilize it. This means if he's still having pain with just the walking boot, they're probably also going to put him in crutches. Depending on how severe the injury is, kind of determines how long you're going to immobilize someone in a walking boot. If it's a super mild injury, it might just be a couple of days, as opposed to a full grade 3 tear, like is the case with Fox, is going to be much longer. Typically though, this is still only on the order of like a week to 10 days. We're not immobilizing for a super long period of time unless there's really more substantial damage we just haven't heard about. The reason you don't want to immobilize for so long is because you can have problems and stiffness just throughout the ankle joint with this period of immobility that can ultimately set your rehab back. Part of it too, as we'll talk about in a little bit, is that you actually want to put some stress in those ligaments to help induce the proper healing of those tissues. So right off the bat here, expect Fox to be in some sort of a walking boot, potentially using crutches in the short term. So how do these actually heal? How does this tissue regenerate to bring these two ends back together? There's 3 big phases of ligament healing. The first one is the inflammatory phase, the second is the repair phase, and the third is the remodeling phase. This whole process takes place over the course of weeks to months. First off, we have the inflammatory phase. This is what's happening in the acute time period right after the injury and in the subsequent days to weeks. During this phase, we have hematoma at the site of the injury, so there's blood products there. We have swelling, and we have all these pro-inflammatory cells that are coming into this area to initiate part of the healing process. The second phase is the repair phase, and this is where the collagen starts to come into play to try to reconstitute that ligament. Ligaments are made up of collagen, which is this rope-like protein that gives the ligament its structural integrity. A number of different cells come into this area and start producing at first type 3 collagen. Type 3 collagen is very disorganized, it's not very strong, it's very fragile, but it's the first stage of this repair process. During this repair phase, the ligament is more susceptible to additional injury if it gets pulled or torn again, because of how weak this type 3 collagen is. The third phase is the remodeling phase, and this is where that type 3 collagen starts to get replaced by the stronger type 1 collagen. And during this phase, you actually need somewhat of a stress to help induce that formation. We have these disorganized fibers, and the goal here is to get everything back in proper alignment to form a good, strong ligament. It's important to understand though that this remodeling phase takes weeks to months. A lot of times when players are coming back from their injury, they're still in this phase of recovery where that ligament is not exactly what it's going to be a year down the road. This is part of why guys are more susceptible to repeat injuries when they first come back, because sometimes these tissues aren't 100% healed and recovered. Bringing this all back around to De'Aaron Fox, it's important to know that everybody is going to heal and recover different. Certainly the quality of your rehab is going to play a big role, but a lot of it just comes down to the player's genetics and the player's own healing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this ends up being closer to like a 4 to 6 week time frame, and could potentially become something longer and lead to possible surgery, just depending on how well his body responds and how well he recovers. Also keep in mind that just like other guys like Trae Young, like Steph Curry, anytime you have any severe ankle injury, you're gonna be at a high risk of having more chronic ankle instability and having repetitive ankle injuries. That's it though for the video though, everybody. Thank you as always for watching. I hope you guys learned something here about grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and kind of the general healing process for these ligaments. Leave any questions or comments below, and until next time, we'll see you later.